Good morning, Grace.
Good morning, Tracy.
It's good to see you here. I actually thought we'd have a few more people because we had quite a few on Monday, which is why we didn't get the story read.
Yeah.
Yeah, and quite a few who had said they were going to be here. And they may join us. Again, we've switched the time, and so it will take a little bit of adjusting. So what we were going to do on Monday was to read a story that talks a little bit about patience. And I think that's probably right now a key word in everybody's life right now is the amount of patience you have to be able to get through what's going on so that we can accomplish something in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah. What would you say is your definition of patience? How would you define that?
Well, I'll define patience like waiting for the right thing to happen at the right time.
And recognizing when that time is.
Yeah.
Good. That's a skill. Yeah, and we're going to do something that's kind of, or watch something that's kind of funny about patience in a sense that determines success from a child in an adult, whether or not they have that patience and that ability as a child makes them. It's a good skill. It's anyhow. So the author that we're reading, and I'm going to share my screen with you, is Thornton Burgess. And what's really interesting to me as I've been doing this is that so many of my favorites are of people who write books about animal life and make them into people in a sense, or give them kind of those people characteristics. Thornton Burgess was, besides being an author, he was a naturalist and a conservationist, and he lived down in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and loved nature and studied nature and began to write for the newspaper these bedtime stories that he used to tell his child. And they became so popular that he's written many, many, many. And I'll put this website in here because it's really kind of it's a good place if kids want to go here and have a chance to read any of his books, because here are all of his books online. Okay. So we're reading one from Mother West Wind storybooks, but they're all here, and the adventures of Jimmy Skunk and Peter Cottontail. Okay, everybody knows Peter Cottontail and his adventures, but it's a very different, and it all takes place in this environment that he developed from his time in the Cape Cod. Okay, I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to put that away, and I'm going to bring up the story and see. Grace, can you see? Let's take it back here. Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I tried something a little differently. And you'll notice that I tried scanning the pages, and some of them are kind of a little cockeyed, but that's okay. This actually is a picture of a heron. And I don't know if you have herons or not there. I think you probably do.
Yeah.
Not storks. Anyhow, they have very, very long legs, and when they're standing and watching for something to eat, they have their head way down in the shoulders. right. But they have a very long, long neck.
Yeah.
You know? So things get close, and and then all of a sudden that neck goes out. You know, so it's kind of interesting. This is a picture though of a heron that landed and spent a couple of days with me in New Hampshire on my farm. Very unusual for him to be on the farm, but he used to hang out with my horse. So that's a picture of a heron. And the reason I bring that in is because we're going to read about how old Mr. Heron learned patience. And I'm going to have to move you, so I'm going to see that. Okay. Whoops. Now I don't know what I did. I'm sorry. Whenever in the spring or summer Peter Rabbit visited Smiling Pool or the Laughing Brook, he was pretty sure to run across Longlegs the Heron. The first time Peter saw him, he thought that he'd never in all his life had he seen such a homely fellow. Longlegs was standing with his feet in the water and his head drawn back on his shoulders so that he didn't seem to have any neck at all. Peter sat and stared at him most impolitely. He knew that he was impolite, but for the life of him, he couldn't help staring. He's all legs, thought Peter. Old Mother Nature must have been in a hurry when she made his ever so great grandfather way back when the world was young and forgot to give him a neck. I wonder why he doesn't move. But Longlegs didn't move. Peter stared as long as his patience held out. Then he gave up and went on to see what else he could find. But in a little while, Peter was back again at the place where he had seen Longlegs. He didn't really expect to find him there, but he did. So far as Peter could see, Longlegs hadn't moved. Must be asleep, thought Peter, and after watching for a few minutes, went away again. Half an hour later, Peter was once more back. There stood Longlegs just as before. Now I know he's asleep, muttered Peter. No sooner were the words out of his mouth than something happened, something so sudden and surprising that Peter lost his balance and nearly fell over backward. The long bill which Peter had seen sticking forth from beneath those humped up shoulders darted out and down into the water like a flash. Behind that bill was the longest neck Peter ever had seen. It was so long that Peter blinked to be perfectly sure that his eyes had not been playing a trick on him. But they hadn't, for Longlegs was gulping down a little fish he had just caught. And when at last it was down, he stretched his neck up very straight while he looked this way, and Peter just gasped. I thought he was all legs, but instead of that, he's all neck, muttered Peter. Then Longlegs slowly drew his head down, and it seemed to Peter as if he must somehow wind that long neck up inside his body to get it so completely out of the way. In a minute, Longlegs was standing just as before, with seemingly no neck at all. Peter watched until he grew tired, but Longlegs didn't move again. After that, Peter went every chance he had to watch Longlegs, but he never had the patience to watch long enough to see Longlegs catch another fish. At the mere mention of Longlegs, he spoke of it one day to Grandfather Frog. At the mere mention of Longlegs, Grandfather Frog sat up and took notice. "Where did you see him?" asked Grandfather Frog, and Peter thought his voice sounded anxious. "Down the Laughing Brook," replied Peter. "Why?" "Oh, nothing," said Grandfather Frog, trying to make his voice sound as if he weren't interested. "I just wondered where the Longlegs nuisance might be." "He's the laziest fellow I ever saw," declared Peter. "He's just standing doing nothing all day." "Humph!" exclaimed Grandfather Frog. "If your family had suffered from him as much as my family has, you would say that he was altogether too busy. Ask the trout what they think, or the minnow family." "Oh," said Peter, "you mean that when he stands still, that he is fishing?" Grandfather Frog nodded. "Well," said Peter, "all I can say is that he is the most patient fellow I ever saw. I didn't suppose there was such patience." "He comes rightly by it," said Grandfather Frog. "He gets it from his great, great, ever so great grandfather, who lived when the world was young. He learned it then." "How?" demanded Peter, eager for a story. Grandfather Frog's eyes took on a far-away look, as if he were seeing into the long ago past. "Chug-a-rub," he began. It always seemed to old Mr. Heron as if Old Mother Nature must have made him last of all birds and was in such a hurry that she didn't care how he looked. His legs were so long and his neck was so long that all his neighbors laughed at him and made fun of him. He was just as awkward as he looked. He didn't know what to do with his long neck. When he tried to run, everybody shouted with laughter. And when he tried to fly, he stretched his, okay, lost something here. Oh, wait a minute. He stretched his long neck out. And then he couldn't keep his balance and just flopped about, while all his neighbors laughed harder than ever. Poor Mr. Heron was ashamed of himself, actually ashamed of himself. He quite overlooked the fact that Old Mother Nature had given him a really beautiful coat of feathers. Some of those who laughed at him would have given anything to possess such a beautiful coat. But Mr. Heron didn't know this. He couldn't bear to be laughed at when he was very like most people. So he tried his best to keep out of sight as much as possible. Now, in those days, as at present, the rushes grew tall beside the Smiling Pool, and among them, I'm sorry, I don't know why I did that. Okay. Let's see, I'm not quite sure what to do here, Grace. Hold on a sec. I'm going to just stop sharing for a second.
Okay.
See why it did that. Okay. That is strange. Now I have to find where it went. Oh my goodness. And among them, that is so strange. Okay.
Mhm.
Oh, wow. It's even when I've quit my mail, it is really weird because um, it just pops up.
Okay.
So I found it, and we'll see if we can get back to among them. And I'm sure this could be a fascinating recording.
Mhm.
Of course, because I don't think, I think, well, oh my goodness, so what happened? And I didn't think to pause it, but that's all right. So I should put this over here. We'll go back over here. Okay. Okay. Okay, we were down here beside the smiling pool. Oh, yes, okay. Now, in those days, as in the present, the rushes grew tall beside the smiling pool, and among them Mr. Heron found a hiding place. Because his legs were long, he could wade out in the water and keep quite in, out of sight of those who lived on the land. So he found a use for his long legs and was glad that they were long. At first, he used to go ashore to hunt for food. One day, as he was wading ashore, he surprised a school of little fish and managed to catch one. It tasted so good that he wanted more, and every day he went fishing. Whenever he saw a little fish swimming where the water was shallow, he would rush in among them and do his best to catch one. Sometimes he did, but more often he didn't. You see, he was so clumsy and awkward that he made a great splashing, and the fish could hear him coming and get away. One day, after he tried and tried without catching even one, he stopped just at the edge of the rushes to rest. His long neck ached, and to rest it, he laid it back on his shoulders. For a long time, he stood there resting. Fish, I lost that again. Let's go back. Uh, the water around his feet was cool and comforting. He was very comfortable, but for one thing, he was hungry. He was just making up his mind to go on and hunt for something to eat when he saw a little school of fish swimming straight towards him. Perhaps, thought he, if I keep perfectly still, they will come near enough for me to catch one. So he kept perfectly still. He didn't dare even stretch his long neck up. Sure enough, the little fish swam almost to his very feet. They didn't see him at all. When they were near enough, he darted his long neck forward and caught one without any trouble at all. Mr. Heron was almost as surprised as the fish he had caught. You see, he discovered that with his neck laid back on his shoulders that way, he could dart his head forward ever so much quicker than when he was holding it up straight. It really was a great discovery for Mr. Heron. Of course, all the other fish darted away in great fright, but Mr. Heron didn't mind. He settled himself in great contentment, for now he was less hungry. And by, some foolish tadpoles came wiggling along. I'll just try catching one of them for practice. Maybe they are good to eat, thought Mr. Heron, and just as before, darted his head and great bill downward and caught a tadpole. They are good, exclaimed Mr. Heron, and once more settled himself to watch and wait. That was a sad day for the frog family, but a great day for Mr. Heron when he discovered that tadpoles were good to eat. Grandfather Frog sighed mournfully. Yes, he continued, that was a great day for Mr. Heron. He had discovered that he could gain more by patient waiting than by frantic hunting, and he had found that his long neck really was a blessing. After that, whenever he was hungry, he would stand perfectly still beside some little pool where foolish young fish or careless tadpoles were at play and wait patiently until they came up within reach. One day, he was startled into an attempt to fly by hearing the stealthy footsteps of Mr. Fox behind him. His head was drawn back, and his shoulder back on his shoulders at the time. And he was so excited that he forgot to straighten it out. Just imagine how surprised he was and how surprised Mr. Fox was when he sailed away in beautiful flight, his long legs trailing behind him. With his neck carried that way, he could fly as well as anyone. From that day on, no one laughed at Mr. Heron because of his long legs and long neck. Mr. Heron himself became proud of them. Because, you see, he had learned to use what he had been given. Also, he had learned the value of patience. So he was happy and envied no one. But he stopped, I'm not sure what that word is, liked best to keep by himself and became known as the lone fisher, just as Longlegs is today. Chug-a-rub, isn't that Longlegs coming this way, this very minute? This is no place for me. And with a great splash, Grandfather Frog dived into the Smiling Pool. That's how Mr. Heron learned patience. With a few glitches because we tried to do it on the screen. Hello, Katrina.
Hello, Katrina.
Hi. Well, that was closer. That was closer this time. I was saying on Friday, we're going to try and do a reader's theater. Do you know what a reader's theater is? No? You can turn your mic on.
What is it? Can you explain?
Yeah, a reader's theater is a story, only it's broken down into parts. So if I were to take the story about how Mr. Heron had learned patience, I would have broken it down into I would have done a narrator part, a Peter Rabbit part, a bullfrog part, and I would have maybe given Heron a part instead of him thinking, I would have had him talking or something. So they would have been reading parts, and you read it as a story that way. Each person takes a part, like in a play.
I see.
Only you don't have to memorize the part because we have the script. You just have to remember which piece you're playing. If we're doing, Peter Rabbit, are you Flopsy, Mopsy, or Cottontail? So, and the story that I wanted to do as a reader's theater is Anansi the spider. Have you ever heard of Anansi?
Don't know. So perhaps there was some cartoon, but I'm not sure if it was a Russian cartoon or an American one.
It's fascinating because I love Anansi. He's a spider. He's a trickster spider, and he comes from West Africa, Ghana. That's where the history is. And nobody, even from Africa that I talked to, know about Anansi. So it's great.
Really?
Yeah, we're gonna learn a little bit about Anansi. I actually use Glogster to do things, and I put together a glog on Anansi. I should maybe see if I can add, I can't add it right now because I didn't think of it, but put it up, and then you can sort of explore a little bit of the history in Anansi through a medium that I like to teach with. Have you ever heard of Glogster? No?
No.
Ah, well, I also want to do some kind of hands-on things for people to be able to learn how to use other things to make things different and fun. But it's a tool. So I had said to try and bring a marshmallow if you could, and of course I went and left the house without my marshmallow. But way back there was a study that was done to look at children 3, 4, 5 who are put in a situation where they had to make a choice of if they decided to do something now, that was the end, but if they decided to wait, then there was more, okay? And so I thought we'd look at this. Then I have 2 videos to share with you. So I have to get back to sharing my screen. And then get the video. And you might have seen these. Can you hear it? He's saying, if you wait 15 minutes, I'll give you 2 marshmallows, or you can eat the marshmallow now. I can't wait. I want to eat it. He didn't even get out of the room. Makes it even more interesting is if you look into the study, they actually did follow up with the kids to see what they were like at 17, 18, 19-year-olds. And those that could wait were much more successful. Notice the strategies we use to try and maintain our patience. Think about what it is right now when we're all in shutdown. You know, the marshmallow is just the opportunity to get outside. What are we doing to distract ourselves so that when we get the marshmallow, it's really a good marshmallow? And I'm going to stop that for a minute because is it so different? If I can get back to. Is it so very different than if the same was done with addicts? This was done in 1960.
Okay, here's the deal. Here's a marshmallow for you. You can either wait, and I'll have another marshmallow for you, or you can eat it now. You only get one. And when I come back, I'll give you two, okay?
And I bring this because it really does make me smile. What are we doing now when we're all stuck in home? You know, we are just trying to get that marshmallow.
Smells really good.
And some people aren't able not to. They'll go out and they'll do whatever, and maybe they'll be okay, maybe they won't. And then there are some of us that, my gosh, we're going to wait that marshmallow. We're going to get two way longer. Oh, we'll get 3 or 4 or 5. However, whatever we have to do, we'll wait. She's probably why some of us are gaining weight during this period of time, you know. I understand people are notching out of
What am I doing with fucking marshmallow?
How'd you do?
How'd you do?
How'd you do?
Oh,
You did good.
I didn't go.
You wanted to eat it, right? Well, I told you to give you another one. Now you're done.
And I can see when we're told that we can finally leave our houses and maybe go to the park or even go and see family, that the marshmallow, you know, is going to be so much better, but that the patience we have to exhibit, you know, is hard. But finding ways to be able to still have parts of that marshmallow without eating the whole marshmallow, like we are doing now, is pretty special. It's pretty special. So, and that's the my story with patience. So, what is the big marshmallow that you're looking forward to? Katrina, what's the big marshmallow for you right now that you're
Sorry, I don't understand the meaning of marshmallow. It's the first time hearing that word. So,
Oh, okay. So, did you watch the video?
yeah, but not to the end.
Okay. But did you see what it was that they were giving the child and the adult?
Yeah.
Okay. It's a white sugary thing, and what we like to do here in America, I'm trying to think if I ever, is to put them on sticks and roast them over a campfire, and then
Yeah.
you put them on a graham cracker with chocolate, and you make a s'more with it, and it's really, really good. Okay, but it's sticky. And Easter time they have these marshmallow chicks and stuff. And
Okay.
Rice Krispie squares. Have you ever heard of Rice Krispie squares?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, Grace. Well, when you and I get together, I'm going to make you Rice Krispie squares and s'mores.
Wow, super.
Yeah, yeah. We'll meet back in Cameroon with the better women, and we'll have a fire going over their campfire, and we'll make some more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyhow, so that's what it is. Okay.
Okay.
And they're very addictive. People really, you have a marshmallow, and they're sweet. They're really good. So, and particularly when you tempt a kid. So what they were doing was saying, here's one marshmallow, and if you can wait 15 minutes, which I think is a long time for a kid, it's a long time for an adult to sit there and stare at a marshmallow. Okay, but that was what the test was, and it was a study that they did. If you can wait 15 minutes and not eat this marshmallow, then I'll give you another marshmallow.
Okay.
So did they have the patience to be able to wait for a second marshmallow, or did they eat it right away? And what were the strategies that they used not to eat it? Okay, and if you look the study up, you'll find that they did follow the kids in the study to later on in life, and found that those that waited not to eat the marshmallows were more successful in life because of that skill and that ability to have the patience to know when to, as you said, know when to wait and when to make you move.
Yeah.
So that's, and what was funny was that they then in later on did the study again, only they did it with adults, and it was the same thing. They were just a little bit maybe more creative in how they distracted themselves. But
Yeah.
so what I'm saying in context is that marshmallow, that thing that we really want to eat, but we have to wait, is what we're all doing right now. Okay.
Yeah.
We've got a marshmallow sitting on our plate, and we really want to eat it. We want to eat it now. But if we can wait until things are safe, and we can do it in a better and safer way, then it will be bigger and better marshmallow for us. It's basically kind of what I was saying. So then I was saying, what is your marshmallow that you're sitting here nibbling at, waiting for when we're out? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense to me well, and the video is also very understood now. But when I started watching the video, it wasn't easy for me because the context and what's happening, it's not familiar with what I know. Yes, it's not familiar with my own culture, my own society. But now I understand that the marshmallow, it's also something symbolic. Yeah, carries a lot of symbolism.
Well, it did for me. It did for me, which is kind of why I pulled it in, the study, because what are you doing? Think about what are you doing right now to creatively distract yourself, and to continue to be happy and whatever. When that marshmallow is there and you can't eat it, how are you distracting yourself from wanting to go out and do whatever? You know, take that marshmallow now. What
Yeah.
do you do?
Well, I go to the garden and start working, doing some garden work. Or I go to the kitchen and look for what can be cooked.
Right?
Or I watch a movie or watch some documentaries or do some research.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And Katrina, what about you? What are you doing?
Well, I've got loads of work now. You see, I'm working online. I have classes online, and all my students are on remote learning now. And I've got so much work to do that there isn't that marshmallow
Well,
on the plate in front of me.
actually, that's the way it should be. That's the way we all should be doing it. I mean, you know, we've been trying to get people to understand the strength of remote learning and sharing and so forth, which is obviously what Grace and Nigel and I are doing. And when are you going to bring students in to come and join the reading group?
Well, I'm thinking about it, but you see, my students are very young. They are 9, 10 years old, and I think there should be something very simple for them to understand.
Okay. We can do, if you want, we can do some just kind of fun things. And we can even do it at another time if you want. Maybe do some nursery rhymes and some songs and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it would be fun. It would be fun for them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, you know, I can gear to whatever. It doesn't really matter. And again, people just have to let me know. And if you want to do something special just with the kids, we can do that. Nigel's looking at doing that kind of stuff too.
Yes, I've got some kids who are really interested in learning English, and I think they will gladly join you.
Okay, okay. So why don't you and I and maybe I don't know, whoever wants to, we'll look at a kids English group that will do, and we'll set that up at another time, or we can morph this. Doesn't matter. But let's talk about that. And is this a good time for the kids, or is it a difficult time?
Well, I have to discuss it with their parents to choose the best time.
Okay, time of day right now there is early afternoon. What time is it there now?
It's a 4:45.
Okay, 4:45. Okay, well, it certainly would be better than having it later because the kids wouldn't be. All right, so that sounds good. What do you think, Grace? You got any kids around there?
No.
No, you don't have any children around.
Yeah, majority of the kids we had was in Tamera, where we first of all landed. Unless we are going to contact those from Tamera if they can actually make the kids to follow up the program. But for where we are, we don't really have kids around. Yeah, and if we have, we are not really used to them because we have been here just for about some months ago.
All right. Well,
so, and can you please tell me a few words about yourselves? Because I don't know much where you're from and what do you do.
Oh, well. Okay, that's right. I forget. You came in from Hello Skypers and not from the others. I mean, I'm so glad you did. Maybe you will start to get Hello Skypers to also come in.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So, Grace, go ahead and talk to me.
I'm Grace, Nebabina Grace. I come from Cameroon. Yeah, I've been teaching English as a second language and also teaching literature in English presently, I work with an organization called Better World Cameroon, where we deal mostly with permaculture projects, and our project, we look at it as a holistic project where we incorporate education, training. Presently, we are in Portugal because Cameroon has been suffering from an ongoing crisis since 2016. So in order to continue with our activities, we actually move on to Portugal, where we carry on hands-on education programs, training of trainers program, which will be a response back home as a result of the crisis. So that's a summary of me and Better World Cameroon.
I see. Mm-hmm. And what age students do you work with?
Back in school, I worked with students from the age, I've worked with different, because in church, I teach in the Sunday school, like teaching the Bible to the children. And back in school, most of the classes I taught were children from between the age of 9 years to, I've worked with all ages because I also taught in an adult school where I teach adults. So yeah, so we work with all ages.
I see.
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to spend time in the community, in Grace's community in Cameroon for a while, and live with the director of Better World and meet the people and so forth. And that was just prior to when the issues began, and all of the beautiful people that I was working with suddenly were now in exile and are out in hiding. It's really a devastating situation there. And we're working, though, to try and help them out as a group, too, aren't we, Grace? Yeah. And I'm Tracy Hansen. And actually, I am a member of Hello Skypers, but I don't have kids, and I work mostly as, I guess, a consultant and whatever. Developed the Matrix of a Learner, which is the picture that you see when I turn my video off. That is a picture of the Matrix of a Learner, and it's kind of a philosophy for learning and education and kind of for life, which says that, you know, together we can do much, but always expecting people and things to be as we want them to be, and not understanding that we are individuals and we have things inside of us that we want out, and that always having things forced in on us, you know, just a different way of thinking and learning. And learning happens everywhere, not in the classroom or school, just there. And so it's a whole bunch of different things. But anyhow, so, and I, and my I guess you would say, marshmallow is to be able to make it through this and be healthy enough to be able to go back out and travel and be with the people that I enjoy so much in Africa and India, wherever it is that I'm called. So that's my hope, you know. But I'm 70 years old, so, you know, it's a real big marshmallow in my head.
Yes, for many people now.
I'm sorry?
For many people now, I think it's a big marshmallow to be able to get out, to travel, and live their usual life.
Yeah. It is. And the work that we were doing to help empower individuals and communities to take charge and move forward and develop, you know, within themselves with the supports of their resources is like, you know, we've gone back so far in the ability of being able to do that right now, given what's going on. It's hard for people to be able to think about helping other people, donating towards other causes and so forth, when they themselves no longer have the ability to be sustainable. So it's going to be a very difficult difficult time, but
Mhm.
and I think we're coming up with some creative and fun ways to be able to make it happen. Anyhow, so please let me know what you'd like to do, Katrina, for your kids. Maybe we'll put a thing out in Hello Skypers and see whether or not there are other teachers there that have kids who want to bring it in, and we can they can take turns. One group might want to present something one week. Okay.
Okay. Mhm.
I think that would be fun. All right. And Friday we'll do a reader's theater, and we'll learn a little bit about Anansi the spider.
Okay. What time will it be?
It will
9
be 9
or
o'clock.
10?
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Mhm.
All right. Namaste.
So thank you.
So, you know, that
Namaste.
marshmallow's there. We'll all get it soon. It's just
Yes. So thank you very much.
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you too.
Yes. See you again.
Ciao.
Bye.